The best of money matters. Right Business.
Welcome to The Right Business, where we dive deep into the stories of trailblazers who dare to disrupt the status quo, find the gap in the market to find the right business. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, as ESG regulations tighten across Southeast Asia, Singapore is stepping up with tangible tech infrastructure to support the region's transition. One of the latest developments, a new AI-powered sustainability reporting platform jointly launched in Indonesia by Singapore-based MVGX and BDO in Indonesia. Now, this platform automates ESG reporting, slashing timelines by half while aligning with international standards along the GRI or the Global Reporting Initiative and the ISSB, which is also the International Sustainability Standards Board. So it's more than just a tech story. It's a signal of how Singapore is exporting sustainability innovation and treating ESG not as a box-ticking exercise, but as a strategic business advantage. So joining us today is Dr. Bo Bai, Chairman and Co-founder of MVGX. Hi, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Hongbin.
All right. Just to start off our conversation here, what inspired you to co-found MVGX?
It's a long journey. From 20 years ago, when I tried to do research to drive decarbonization, and then later I founded my private equity firm to invest and decarbonize. And along the way, we founded MVGX in order to use fintech to drive decarbonization efforts.
Okay, so how do you see the role of green fintech in shaping the future of Southeast Asia's sustainable development?
I think the whole ecosystem are gradually being developed, and Singapore is at the very front of that developments.
Okay.
The system needs to be developed so that you have the measurement and then the mitigation efforts for decarbonization, and then with the green finance to finance those decarbonization efforts, and then come back to certify. Green fintech, what MVGX is trying to do, is very much in the middle of that whole journey of decarbonization, starting with the measurement and ends with the assurance and the certification.
So what are the key challenges businesses here in Southeast Asia face when it comes to ESG compliance, and how does MVGX address them?
Right. So for many of you try to tackle the ESG compliance side, you begin to quickly realize this is very complicated. So many jargons and so many different type of regulatory requirements. Our job there is trying to make it simple, make it scalable, and make it seamless for the enterprises and then for governments, for regulators to handle. And the way to achieve that is by technology, particularly digital technology, and then in particular with the latest movements of artificial intelligence.
Well, on that note, what do you think is the most significant barrier to businesses adopting sustainability practices in Southeast Asia, and how can they overcome them?
Right. I think you have to have the right mentality. I always say that decarbonization and sustainability is not a job of a chief sustainability officer. It's the job and the desire of the chairman and the CEO of the company. So capacity building is a critical first step to help organization to understand the importance and the needs for organization to make the change. And then the technology, as what MVGX is developing, can help make those complicated process as simple and as seamlessly as possible. But the last step is most critical is with that mindset, with this platform to drive the efforts, you gotta go to mitigate. You gotta go shove on the ground to make the real action, real projects to reduce the carbon emission and then to make your business sustainable environmentally and with the technology help economically.
Well, on that note, in your view then, how important is AI-powered technology in transforming, ESG reporting, and what impact will the new platform launched in collaboration with MVGX and BDO have on businesses in the region?
Indeed, AI is a very critical digital tool, which coupled with the increasing large amount of data coming from the corporate's operation as well as emission data factor are effective to help corporate to understand and then quickly assess their situation on their scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, and then being able to generate ESG report for compliance and regulatory purpose very quickly. So for that matter, it really reduces the burden of many of these corporates on their preparation and on their know-how and understanding. You can think of it almost like an outsourced chief sustainability officer as an AI agent.
Wow.
And it's a lovely AI agent collecting the data, doing the analysis, and then prepare the report that are in line with the latest regulatory reports for different jurisdictions. So that is what we have not launched with the BDO in Indonesia, trying to revolutionize and then to change that process to make it easy. But in addition to make your life easy, AI, by pattern recognition, also has the strength of predictive power.
Okay.
And then that AI-driven predictive power is extremely useful for the platform to analyze the data while generating the report, also to provide potential solutions that can help corporates to figure out ways to mitigate. Use a simple example as some of the buildings. The buildings can benefit from an AI platform to understanding their electricity consumptions and their water and then cooling consumptions, and how does that corresponding to the temperature, the weather, the human traffic, and so on and so forth. And just like a diagnostics system, and then the AI system can help you to see some problems that will happen but not fully manifested themselves yet. So predictive diagnostics, predictive maintenance is extremely effective way with AI reporting and the AI system to help the organization to become efficient in the reporting, but also to be really efficient, to make something real happen.
Sounds like a very groundbreaking platform that you've made here. But how can sustainability reporting evolve then beyond compliance to become a strategic advantage for businesses?
Historically, many people treat sustainability compliance as a sort of a burden. It's sort of reporting, and compliance requirements, and so forth. I always tell people that doing it right, sustainability efforts or your chief sustainability officer can become your chief competitive officer. We are facing a world that are increasingly complicated and then requires sustainable solutions. And among your peers, among your competitors, the ones that does a better job to identify sustainable solutions to achieve better sustainability report will need to look into ways to optimize their operation, optimize their supply chain, find the technologies to replace older technologies, and in order to improve the energy efficiency, process efficiency, and so forth. So compliance sustainability report, in my view, is a starting point, is the end point. And then what's in the middle is what matters tremendously.
Right.
Is with that, your organization begin to figure out, how do I make myself sustainable? But remember, you're also a commercial entity. So in that journey of become more sustainable, you also need to be able to reduce your cost.
Right.
And then you force yourself to be more efficient. You force yourself to adopt the latest technology and then drive yourself toward a more competitive company with a better ESG report and then better financial report.
Well, Doctor, with the tightening of ESG regulations across Southeast Asia, then, how do you foresee the role of regulatory bodies evolving in supporting sustainability initiatives?
I think it's very critical for regulatory bodies, for government to set the framework, to set the tone, to set the supporting ground for this to happen. For example, Singapore is extremely good at leading these efforts. We have on the green finance taxonomy, building upon the common ground taxonomy, Singapore initiated SAT, Singapore Asia taxonomy, that governs what type of green finance can be counted as green finance and so forth. So that is extremely good framework set up for people to follow. Carbon credit market has faced its challenges, and then in particularly for transition financing and transition activities for energy-intensive aging economy, transition credit is also something Singapore created and then united many people to pursue. United Nations has been having difficulties to resolve our Article 6 problem, which is a Paris Agreement Article 6 to allow the carbon credits to be traded across different countries. And Singapore took the great initiative to build the bilateral relationship between Singapore and different countries as Ghana and even more Rwanda and other countries, Papua New Guinea, an announcement. It's this type of announcement announcement is this type of leadership that the regulatory body sets the framework for the private sectors to follow. And the private sector, with that framework, should think about how to use the best technology at hand. They're evolving extremely fast. And then to create the easiest solution for your corporate clients for that ESG and compliance reporting, but also generating ways to help them to think about how to mitigate their emissions.
Well, zooming into Singapore as well, how do you see Singapore's leadership in green finance influencing the broader Southeast Asia market? And what role does MVGX play in that leadership?
Singapore, as I mentioned, on the green finance taxonomy, which is essentially a standard of green finance, has developed SAT, Singapore Asia Taxonomy, which is a fantastic framework for green finance to evolve. In addition to that, in the whole carbon credit market, transition credit market, Singapore is also the absolute leader to drive that efforts to happen. What we tried to complement to some extent is, number one, we try to work on certain verticals, trying to be as helpful as possible. We're very honored to be this year's green partner for World Aquarium Championship in Singapore, leading to our anniversary. So we're pretty happy about that efforts going to be able to do the scope 1, 2, 3, as well as carbon diary for these events, and then work further down that path of the events vertical. In addition, industrial parks are critical ecosystem for global industry, particularly developing countries. We went to study hard what Singapore has helped China to build, the Suzhou Industrial Park. And then with the Suzhou Industrial Park's green practices, we worked with our partners in China with our efforts begin to develop potentially an ISO Sustainable Industrial Park Standard. And we have achieved the first milestone to make this PAS 8848 Sustainable Industrial Park Standard. This is all coming from wonderful early efforts coming from Singapore. With the standard setting for industrial parks and free economic zones, we have been expanding the efforts with Singapore as our headquarters and origination toward Southeast Asia and toward the Middle East. We formed a partnership with the World Free Zone Organization, which is an organization body for 1,600 global free zones and industrial parks. We're also appointed as their national contact point for Singapore to help further drive these efforts in Southeast Asia. So I think with the Singapore government's wonderful leadership and efforts and a great emphasis in this area, private sector companies such as MVGX are playing our role to complement on some of those standards, some of those initiatives, and then more importantly, use technology to drive those standards, to drive those compliance into real action, into real mitigation.
Very interesting. And before we let you go here, Doctor, what's next for MVGX? Are there any future plans in the pipelines that you can share with us?
Sure. One, on the technology platform side, we focus on this compliance services, and hence it's driving the efforts across the region in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and other countries in Southeast Asia, and increasingly Middle East as well. So international expansion from our headquarters in Singapore as an engine is a critical element. Number two, increasingly, we are using these fintech efforts to drive mitigation efforts as well as the green financing efforts. We are using our affiliates to invest in the green hydrogen value chain. We believe green hydrogen coming from sunlight, electrolysis, and then with water is an extremely important value chain that Singapore will play a very critical part in hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, SAF, and then all those green fuels for transportation, aviation, and so forth. So this type of fintech efforts are going to drive the real green venture capital and private equity investments into real technology company into Singapore, and then to drive that mitigation efforts across the region and in Middle East. So we firmly believe, end of the day, use it right. Technology is an enabling force. Use it right. Sustainability is not a burden. It's a competitive advantages. It can drive economic value and the wealth of the companies.
Amazing. Well, looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much, Doctor, for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was Dr. Bo Bai, Chairman and Co-founder of MVGX. This has been The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.